Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a narrative that stands as the absolute ultimate example of patience, profound sacrifice, and just unwavering trust in the divine. We're looking closely at the life of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Specifically, we're going to dissect a deeply moving, incredibly tense event that perfectly captures that friction between our human limitations and absolute divine power. Just imagine it for a second. On one side of this story, you have a heartfelt, deeply vulnerable, tearful plea for a child from an aging man. And on the other side, an overwhelming response, a glad tiding from God that completely defied all natural logic, bypassed every physical law, and left minds utterly astonished. It's a story about what happens when the immovable reality of human biology collides with the unstoppable force of God's will.
Okay, let's dive into this. To truly grasp the gravity of this narrative, we need to bridge the gap between a 4,000-year-old historical account and our own lives right now. So I want you to ask yourself a serious question. Have you ever asked for something that every single logical fiber in your being told you was entirely impossible? Just sit with that for a second. We all have those modern-day struggles, right? Those quiet, long-held prayers where the math simply doesn't add up and the odds are stacked completely against us. Keep that exact feeling, that precise vulnerability in mind, because that is the threshold where our story begins.
Section 1. The Test of Patience. Leaving Home and Seeking Righteousness.
To understand the sheer weight of Prophet Ibrahim's ultimate prayer, we really have to recognize the immense sacrifice that preceded it for an entire lifetime. His journey didn't just start with a casual plea. Day one of this timeline represents a monumental, life-altering sacrifice. This was a man who left everything behind, his homeland, his people, his status, his entire nation, solely for the sake of God. He stepped into the absolute unknown with literally nothing but his faith as his compass. Then we move into the years of unwavering devotion, preaching to a completely unreceptive world, and just an incredible stoic display of patience. And those hard years, well, they turned into decades. Decades of reaching an advanced, incredibly frail old age. Decades of waiting for an heir to carry on his prophetic mission. I mean, imagine the quiet human desperation that builds up over a lifetime of waiting for just one single prayer to be answered. The biological clocks hadn't just ticked away, they had stopped. The physical machinery of fatherhood was shut down. Yet, as this timeline culminates, after a lifetime of deafening silence on this specific front, sudden miraculous news arrives in mere moments.
Section 2. A Prayer for the Righteous. Surah As-Saffat, verse 100.
Let's just slow down here for a moment. After all those decades of agonizing waiting, in his deeply advanced age, Prophet Ibrahim made a very specific, incredibly vulnerable plea. The Quran beautifully records his exact words, which translate to, "My Lord, grant me a child from among the righteous." It's incredibly profound in its absolute simplicity. He's looking squarely at the utterly unfavorable odds of his reality. He knows the physical impossibility of his old age. He feels the frailty of his bones. And yet he turns completely to God with this heartfelt, undiluted plea. But notice the nuance here. He isn't just asking for any heir to carry his name. He is specifically asking for a righteous continuation of his legacy. He isn't asking out of mere biological instinct. He's asking for a spiritual successor to carry the heavy burden of prophethood. He ties his greatest worldly desire entirely to the service of the divine.
Section 3. Angels in Human Form. The Unexpected Guests.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that the answer to this lifelong prayer didn't come in a subtle, ordinary way. The narrative shifts dramatically when unexpected visitors suddenly arrive at Prophet Ibrahim's home. These were angels, sent directly by God, but appearing entirely in human form. And they didn't just bring comforting platitudes, They brought highly specific, miraculous news. They gave him the glad tidings of a deeply knowledgeable son who would be Prophet Ishaq, peace be upon him. Just pause and deeply internalize the sheer theological weight of this moment. Think about the absolute impossibility of this promise being made to a man of his advanced elderly age. It completely shattered the boundaries of expected earthly reality. The angels stood there and promised life from a physical vessel that the world deemed completely barren.
Section 4. Overcoming Human Despair. The Shock of Old Age.
You see, Prophet Ibrahim's reaction to this news wasn't just a calm, passive nod. The Quran details a deeply natural, visceral, and beautifully human reaction to this earth-shattering announcement. Surah Al-Hijr, verse 54, captures his profound astonishment. "Do you give me good tidings while old age has reached me? Of what then do you give good tidings?" And this brilliantly illustrates his human vulnerability. Honestly, it is incredibly comforting for us as modern believers to see a prophet of his immense stature have such a raw, logical, biological question in the face of a miracle. He's looking directly at his physical reality. He's asking a completely logical question based on the earthly laws of biology that God himself put in place. Like, how can you promise me a child when my body is far past the age of fatherhood? It's not a lack of faith at all. It's the sheer shock of human limitation colliding with divine limitlessness.
So here we see a profound theological divide being established. On one side, we have human reality, the logical, earthly, inescapable truth that old age had overtaken him, the literal decay of human biology. But on the other side, we have divine reality, the absolute, uncontainable, limitless power of God's command. The angels are representing a plane of existence where physical limitations simply do not matter. When God decrees a thing, the biological rules that we obsess over and rely upon are completely bypassed. It's a stunning contrast between what the human eye sees as a dead end. Actually, scratch that, it's not a dead end. To the divine, it is simply the beginning of a brand new chapter.
The angels address Ishaq directly in the very next verse, Surah Al-Hijr, verse 55. We have given you good tidings in truth, so do not be of the despairing. This is a staggeringly powerful reassurance. They're effectively telling him that because this is a divine command, despair has absolutely zero place here. God is not bound by earthly limits. When our biological clocks have stopped, when our situational clocks have seemingly run out, we feel despair because we measure our lives by earthly metrics. But the angels remind him, and by extension all of us, that as believers, our hope shouldn't be constrained by those earthly metrics. To despair is to mistakenly believe that God is restricted by the exact same limitations that restrict us.
And this absolute amazement was a shared, profoundly human experience. Surah Hud tells us that his wife Bibi Sarah, peace be upon her, was also completely astonished by this news. Hearing this conversation unfold, realizing the sheer impossibility of the situation for both of them, her reaction amplifies just how far outside the realm of normal human expectation this miracle truly was. They were partners in life, partners in old age, and now completely shocked partners in receiving the ultimate glad tiding.
But this angelic visit had a deeply complex dual purpose that demonstrates the ultimate awe-inspiring scale of divine power. The angels were tasked with two massive, utterly contrasting missions that were to be executed on the exact same journey. First, the creation of life, bringing the miraculous glad tidings of a son from a state of absolute barrenness. Second, the destruction of transgression. They were also en route to deliver a swift and impending punishment to the nation of Prophet Lot, a people who had brazenly exceeded all moral and physical bounds of transgression. In one sweeping, singular visit, we see the profound duality of God's power, the tender mercy to miraculously create life where there was none, operating simultaneously with the definitive, uncompromising justice to destroy rebellion. It really forces us to recognize the absolute vastness of the God being called upon.
So, the crucial point is, how do we take this? Section 5. The Power of Hope. Lessons for today. How do we take this ancient, awe-inspiring narrative and apply it directly to ourselves? What are the core takeaways from these verses that we can use to navigate our own modern challenges? Well, first, despair is basically akin to disbelief. The angels told Ibrahim not to be among the despairing, because to lose all hope is to essentially doubt the limitless nature of the Creator. It's a crisis of faith, not just a crisis of circumstance. Second, God never waits sincere prayers. Decades passed for Prophet Ibrahim, decades of silence. But the prayer was never lost in the void. It was held, preserved, and answered at the absolutely perfect divine time. And third, unfavorable circumstances absolutely do not limit God's power. It does not matter how bad the odds look on paper, or how biologically, financially, or logically impossible a situation seems to our fragile human minds. Divine power literally laughs at natural logic.
Which leaves us with a final lingering question. Will you remember Rabbi Habli minas-salihin in your own difficult times? The next time you face a situation that seems like an absolute dead end, remember the man who prayed for a child in his twilight years and was answered by angels. Apply this unwavering trust to your own life. In fact, if this explainer resonated with you today, I challenge you to step out of that despair. Leave a comment down below right now with the words, "Grant me a child from among the righteous," or whatever your specific, seemingly impossible prayer is, to mark your presence and to cement your commitment to never losing hope. Thank you so much for joining me. Keep learning and hold fiercely onto that unwavering trust.